Yo, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for checking out the channel today. Today we are going to be doing a kind of unique video. I did get this idea from one of my friends, so shout out E-Rock. This one is coming from you. So today we're going to be going over how I personally take notes when I'm playing in a competitive tournament. So with that being said, just as a quick, kind of disclaimer, this is how I take my notes. This is how I have learned to take them. And this is how my notes have been ruled to be okay for my local tournaments. So like, don't be surprised if what I tell you doesn't work at your local league. Everybody's different. It's always up to judges' discretion on what is acceptable for the tournament. So just keep in mind that these have been fabricated from my own personal experiences, but they are relatively in line with what Pokemon deems to be okay. So first and foremost, to take notes, you're going to need either a notebook like I have here or like a digital kind of notepad. I did used to have a digital notepad, but I lost it at a regionals, so I have been forced to use this. I do think that this might be a better example for this kind of a video because it will show you that you have to remove all previous matches. So one key thing to note about this notepad in particular, though, is that it has a transparent cover. So I do not take notes on this front page. I take them on the subsequent pages, so that way whatever I write here doesn't come through and my opponent can kind of read it. So always be mindful of the cover on your notebook. If you have a semi-transparent one like mine, don't take notes on the first page because they will be able to be read. Always take them on the subsequent pages. And then as far as taking notes, I do believe Pokemon is very explicit in the sense of what you can and can't write. So for instance, if I'm trying to indicate that I have prized an Ultra Ball, I do not believe I can write U-Ball, but I can write Ultra Ball. And note-taking is all about being fast and efficient while also still being able to properly notate what you are trying to remember. So, you can't write U-Ball, I don't believe. You basically have to make it to where whatever is being notated cannot be interpreted to be more than one card. So I will have to double check this actually. I think U-Ball might be correct. I don't think it is. But you can't just write ball. I know that for a fact. Because this could be Nest Ball, could be Ultra Ball, could be Great Ball. It could be anything. So this, I know for a fact, is not allowed. I do believe you also cannot write UB because that is not a clear indication of what you are trying to notate. And as like a general rule, I believe the rules actually do say that a judge should be able to look at your notes and determine what it is you are trying to notate. So if you write UB, your judge reasonably could assume that you mean Ultra Ball, but to you, UB could mean Arceus V-Star. They could just be some random kind of notation that you have indicated to represent Arceus V-Star. So they have to be able to be interpreted with minimal amount of communication between you and the judge. And note-taking isn't exclusive to just your prizes. It is the most common thing that people will use notes for, but you can take notes on like your opponent's stuff too. So like if throughout the game, you're playing a series, it's game one, and you know that the game is probably going to end within the next turn or two, you can look through like your opponent's discard and take note of like, okay, yeah, they play 2 boss, 1 counter catcher, and then no prime. So that way you have notated all of their gusting effects, because this might be relevant depending on certain matchups. So like if this is out of the ordinary for the type of deck you're playing against, this is good to notate because it tells you what you have to play around in games 2 and 3, so you're not caught off guard. It's also really good if you play a card like Airy. If your opponent has like a 4-card hand, you know, you could go, okay, they have Boss, Radzard, Fire, and Research. Actually, I think Research would probably be a bad idea. Fire, Super Rod. You know? So now you know what these 4 cards are. So you know that, you know, once they draw for turn, if they play a card that was not any one of these 4, you know that that was the card that they drew for turn. So you can kind of keep track of what your opponent has in their hand, depending on what they have played after you got the knowledge from their hand. And then as far as just like general things to kind of look for when you're prize checking, I do have my deck over here. I'm going to kind of do an example note-taking session after all this. But it's really dependent on what you need to set up and what you're going to need in the matchup. So, for instance, if you're playing something like Gardevoir, you're going to want to note how many Curlias you have, where your tools are, how many energies you have access to, and stuff like that. And then if you are playing Guardy into something like the Turbo Hands matchup, you're going to also want to note where your Scream Tail is and where your counter catchers are, because those are very important in that specific matchup. Whereas if you're playing against something like, you know, Arceus V-Star, you don't really care where your Scream Tail is because you're probably not going to use it. Like, it's not important to use, if that means, you know, if that makes sense. So like, it can be something you'll use, but it's not something you care about knowing where it is. And you know, you really just want to be as efficient as possible, because it's technically not a rule that you get more time to search during your first deck search. It's just kind of people let you do it. But generally what I've always told like my friends is, if you have like multiple search cards on the first turn, don't try to solve everything on the first card. Break it up in between the amount of searches you have on the first turn. So like if you have a nest ball and a nest ball, play the first nest ball by itself, and then look and see, you know, what Pokemon are prized and what energies are prized. And then on the second nest ball, check your supporters and your items. Just so that way you're being, you know, respectful of the time. You're not, you know, trying to accrue this a massive amount of time advantage to completely fix all 6 of your prizes. So yeah, that's just like my biggest thing is like, you know, be respectful of the rules and the time, and, you know, try to be as efficient as possible while also getting the information you need. And then one really key thing to note about taking paper notes is that after each round is completed, you must rip out the piece of paper and throw it away. I mean, you might be able to like keep it in your backpack or whatever, but you are not allowed to have previous round notes in your notepad while playing in a different round. So like, for instance, you know, if I had round 1 here and round 2 here, and a judge came over and they flipped, I would get a penalty for this, because you just can't have your notes overlapping. And yeah, so that's like a very important thing to know when taking paper notes. And usually the digital notepads will have like a clear button, which is kind of why people like them more, because it's, you know, a singular pad that you can just clear off after every round. So like, you physically cannot have multiple rounds of notes stored. And then yeah, so now I'm going to kind of do the test note taking here. I do have my Guardy deck. I already did shuffle it up, and I made sure that I had a basic, but I don't know what the prizes are. So as you can see, we have, you know, 3 different basics we can start with. You know, optimal starter of Fluttermane, and then the rest is kind of irrelevant. So we're gonna go ahead and put out the 6 prizes. And sorry if this is kind of like an awkward, you know, maneuvering. The setup going on right here is quite intrusive, so I'm very limited with my mobility here. So yeah, we're going to assume that we went second, just for argument's sake. And then we're going to draw for turn. We draw Buddy Buddy Poffin, so we do have a search card in Arven and Poffin. So I'm going to go ahead and play the Poffin and try and figure out what I prized. So right away I can see that my Hero's Cape is in here. Since Guardy's most important aspect is its Pokemon, I'm going to pull the Pokemon to the front and check those first. And I know a lot of people might get a little, you know, bent out of shape if they see Pokemon getting reorganized like this. This is perfectly acceptable as long as you thoroughly shuffle the deck after you are done searching. And you guys are going to notice my spicy Slowbro tech that I've been trying out. Okay, so off of this right here, I can see I prized the Ralts. I do know I have the second Gardevoir in my hand. So I prized the Ralts. I have Screamtail, Fluttermane, and Drifloon in my hand already. So I'm pretty sure that's the last lone basic. It looks like I prized Manaphy out of like my support. So we have Ralts, Manaphy, and then the Slowpoke is prized as well. So that right there should be 3 of our prizes. Because as we can see, Drifloon, Screamtail, Gardevoir, no Ralts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my note of Ralts, Manaphy, Slowpoke. Okay. And then we are going to resolve the Poffin and grab 2 Ralts. And then because I do have the Arven in hand, I'm going to go ahead and play this. And now we're going to check the energies. Oh, whoops. Alright, so we have 2, 4, 6, 7. I have 2 in hand, so I know all of my energies are in the deck. Let's quickly check the tools. Okay, so we have the 2 TMs, we have the Lux Cape, the Bravery Charm, so we have all 5 tools. And then quickly we'll check the supporters. There's the 2 other Arven, Turo, 3 Iono, 4 Iono. So it looks like we prized an Arven, which I'm going to go ahead and notate. And then because we have checked most of the important stuff, I think the next quick thing I'm going to check is like Super Rods. 1, 2, both Super Rods are in here. 1 Vacuum's in here. 3 Ultra Balls are in here. 1 Vessel's in here. 1, 2, 3 Poffin are in here. It looks like we prized a Counter Catcher. Nope, both Counter Catchers are in here. And by that, oh, we priced Thornton, which is in here for the Slowpoke package. And the last card doesn't appear to be super relevant, so I'm not going to worry about it. So after, you know, I'm not going to finish resolving the Arven. There's no point. I mean, technically, if I really wanted to, I could have, you know, selected my 2 cards, and then while I was trying to figure out what my last 2 prizes were, I could have played the Poffin and then did that searching for the Thornton and whatnot. So, you know, off of this, I think maybe just, yeah, I think it's going to be just the Ralts, even though it's irrelevant. So yeah, we basically did a lot of searching. I mean, like, we can technically even keep going. So like, if I really wanted to know what that last prize was, I could use the evolution here, and you know, I noticed that I have the Curlias, so if I really wanted to try and figure out what that last prize was, I think it's a one of supporter. I think it's boss. Yeah, it looks like it's boss's orders. So we're gonna evolve here, and so as you saw, you know, I did 3 different searching effects. You know, I did the Poffin, the Arven. Actually, I did 4. Sorry, I did Poffin, Arven, Poffin off of Arven, and then the TM. And I was able to use every single one of those effects to determine what my 6 prizes should be. So let me just double check. Yeah, I don't have boss in my hand, so my 6 prizes should be a Ralts, a Manaphy, a Slowpoke, an Arven, a Thornton, and a boss. So let's go ahead and see if we were right. We have boss, Thornton, Manaphy, Slowpoke, Ralts, Arven. And just to confirm, Ralts, Manaphy, Slowpoke, Arven, Thornton. So as you can see, we were able to figure out all 6 of our prizes. And this is a key thing to try and figure out, because these 6 cards you will not have access to until you take them. So if you're playing against a matchup where you need Manaphy like Lost Box or Chi and Pow, then you know that you need to find your Hisuian Heavy Ball so you can grab this. If your opponent gets off a really aggressive start and KOs your Curlias and you need to get a Ralt back, again, Heavy Ball is crucial for these. And then if you know you are trying to use Curlias to draw into boss because you are even on prizes, you know that it's prized, so you know that that is not a play line you can go for, so you need to adjust accordingly. So knowing your 6 prizes is a very key thing to do. And you know, as I mentioned before, the kind of testing thing, use your searching effects to your advantage, because you know, I was resolving 4 different searching effects and I was efficiently able to figure out all 6 of my prizes. You know, I figured out, what was it, 3 or 4 of them on the first search, 1 of them on another one, and then, you know, I figured out the one after the last couple of searches. So, you know, use the time that you are allotted to your advantage. You know, try and be as efficient as possible, because now I get to play this entire game knowing what I prized. So that makes it very useful for discarding cards with Curlia, you know, discarding cards with the Earthen Vessel, you know, using up Arvens early knowing I prized one, or like trying to dig for boss even though I know it's prized, or you know, digging for the Heavy Ball to get the Manaphy if it's a card I need in that particular matchup. So yeah guys, that is probably going to be the end of the video right now. I really hope this was helpful to you guys. Remember, if you do enjoy this kind of content, to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, go ahead and leave me a comment down below what other kind of tips and tricks videos you might want to see from me, and I will go ahead and consider those and maybe potentially make those into videos. Yeah guys, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.